Captain Zekmo flexed his forearms in satisfaction as his boarding party swept through the human transport vessel. The pathetic little ship had surrendered without firing a single shot, which honestly took some of the fun out of piracy. Where was the sport in... Captain? First Mate Grexic's voice crackled through the comm. We found something interesting in Cargo Bay 3. Zekmo's scaled face split into what humans might charitably call a grin, though it showed far too many teeth to be friendly. Survivors? 1. Small human female. Looks young, even by their standards. Perfect. Young humans fetched the best prices on the slave markets of Kepler Station. Zekmo made his way through the ship's corridors, stepping over the unconscious crew members his pirates had stunned. Really, humans made this too easy. No wonder half the galaxy treated them like pets. The cargo bay doors hissed open, revealing his crew standing in a loose circle around a stack of shipping containers. Behind them, wedged between two crates marked agricultural supplies, cowered what appeared to be a human child. She couldn't have been more than 16 standard years, with brown hair tied back in a messy ponytail and wearing simple civilian clothes. Her knees were drawn up to her chest, arms wrapped around them, and she was shaking like a vegan tree rat in a thunderstorm. "Please don't hurt me," she whispered, looking up at them with wide, terrified eyes. "I'm just a passenger. I don't have anything valuable." Zekmo's crew exchanged glances. The girl was speaking perfect Galactic standard, which was unusual for such a young human. Most of them could barely manage basic trade phrases at that age. "What's your name, little human?" Zekmo asked, using what he considered his most intimidating voice. Katie, she stammered, pressing herself further back against the containers. "Katie Chen. I was going to visit my aunt on Proxima Colony. Are you going to kill me?" The question was asked with such genuine fear that even Blickstar, Zekmo's notoriously cruel second-in-command, almost looked sympathetic. Almost. "That depends," Zekmo said, crouching down to her level, "on how much trouble you cause us." Katie nodded frantically. "I won't cause any trouble, I promise. I'll do whatever you want." "Captain," Grexic muttered in their native tongue. "She might be worth more as a hostage. Humans are stupidly sentimental about their young. Or we could sell her on Kepler," suggested Blickstar. "Clean, undamaged human females bring premium prices." While his crew debated her fate in what they assumed was incomprehensible alien gibberish, Katie's eyes darted around the cargo bay. She noticed the plasma rifles slung carelessly over their shoulders, the positions of each crew member, the location of the nearest exit. Her gaze lingered on the ship's internal comm panel mounted near the door, and she seemed to be counting something under her breath. "Excuse me," Katie said quietly, interrupting their discussion. Could I have some water? I've been hiding here for hours, and I'm really thirsty." Zekmo looked at her with what passed for amusement among his species. "You're in no position to make demands, little human." "I wasn't demanding," Katie said quickly, flinching, as if expecting a blow. "I was just asking. Please, I won't cause any trouble, I promise." The captain studied her for a moment. She really was pathetic. Humans had supposedly conquered half the known galaxy, but looking at this trembling child, he couldn't understand how they'd managed to colonize a single asteroid, let alone dozens of star systems. "Fine," he said eventually. "Clock, get the prisoner some water." "Thank you," Katie whispered, genuine gratitude in her voice. "You're very kind." Kind? Zekmo had been called many things in his long career of piracy, but kind wasn't one of them. Either this human child was even more naive than she appeared, or she was trying some sort of psychological manipulation. Given that she was human, naive seemed far more likely. "How many of you are there?" Katie asked suddenly. The crew tensed, weapons coming up slightly. Even Plock, the most simple-minded of Zekmo's pirates, recognized that as a potentially dangerous question. Katie added hastily, seeing their reaction. "I just wondered if there's enough water for everyone. I don't want to take someone else's share. That wouldn't be fair." The weapons lowered again. Of course, human morality in action. Even when captured by pirates, they worried about fairness and sharing. It would be almost admirable if it weren't so stupidly impractical. There's plenty of water, Zekmo assured her with dark humor. Don't worry your pretty little head about it. As Plock handed her a water bulb, Katie managed a shaky smile. What should I call you, sir? Captain? I don't want to be disrespectful. Captain Zekmo found himself almost liking the polite little human. It had been a long time since anyone had shown him proper respect, even if it was born of terror, rather than admiration. This was going to be easier than he'd thought. The detention cell aboard the Bloodfang wasn't designed for comfort. It barely qualified as designed at all, really. 3 metal walls, 1 energy barrier, a sleeping pad that had seen better centuries, and a waste disposal unit that probably violated several galactic health codes. It was, Blickstar thought with professional pride, absolutely perfect for breaking the spirit of prisoners. Katie sat on the edge of the sleeping pad, knees drawn up again in that defensive posture that screamed helpless victim. She'd been quiet during the short walk from the cargo bay, only speaking to thank Plock when he'd guided her around a protruding bulkhead that might have knocked her unconscious. Thanked him for not letting her brain herself on their ship. Humans really were something else. Comfortable? Blickstar asked, settling his considerable bulk into the chair outside her cell. At nearly 7 feet tall and built like a siege engine, he'd found that his mere presence usually got prisoners talking. It's fine, thank you, Katie said politely. I mean, it's better than hiding behind those shipping containers. My back was getting really sore. Blickstar blinked. In 30 years of interrogation, no prisoner had ever thanked him for their accommodations. You do realize you're a captive, right? This isn't a pleasure cruise. Oh yes, I understand, Katie nodded seriously. You're pirates, you probably have to be mean to people. It's like your job description, right? That does sound very mean, Katie agreed. But was the Centaurian diplomat a bad person? I mean, did he deserve it? Deserve it? Blickstar leaned forward. What does that have to do with anything? Well, if you're only mean to bad people, then you're kind of like space police, right? With bigger guns and cooler ships. Space police. Blickstar felt something that might have been an aneurysm starting behind his left eye. We are criminals, you simple-minded child. We steal, we kill, we sell people into slavery. We are not police. Oh, Katie looked genuinely disappointed. That's too bad. You seemed nice when you gave me water. Do you have families? The question came out of nowhere, delivered with such innocent curiosity that Blickstar answered before thinking, I have 3 hatchlings on Kepler Prime. That's wonderful. What are their names? Do they look like you? Their names are... Blickstar stopped, realizing he was having a pleasant conversation about his children with a prisoner he was supposed to be intimidating. That's none of your concern. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pry, Katie said quickly. I just think it's nice that even pirates can have families. It makes you seem more, well, more like real people instead of just scary monsters. Real people, not scary monsters. Blickstar had spent decades cultivating his reputation as a scary monster, and this slip of a human girl was dismantling it with casual observations and genuine interest in his personal life. What about Captain Zekmo? Katie continued. Does he have a family too? The captain's mate died in the Proxima campaign, Blickstar found himself saying. He doesn't talk about it. That's so sad. No wonder he became a pirate. Sometimes when people are hurt, they hurt others. It's like a defense mechanism. Blickstar stared at her. You're psychoanalyzing my captain now. Oh no, I'm not qualified for that. I just read a lot of books. Psychology is fascinating, don't you think? The way different species handle trauma and loss. Like, do your people express grief the same way humans do? That is... Blickstar realized he was about to launch into a detailed explanation of Zenthuri morning rituals. Stop that. Stop what? Stop making me want to answer your questions. Katie tilted her head, looking confused. I'm sorry. I was just curious. You all seem so interesting. I mean, you've probably been to dozens of planets, seen incredible things. Do you miss home when you're traveling? Of course we miss. Stop it. Sorry, I'll be quiet. But the damage was done. Instead of a cowering prisoner begging for mercy, Blickstar found himself facing someone who seemed genuinely interested in him as a person. It was unsettling. When was the last time anyone had asked about his hatchlings? When had anyone cared whether he missed home? The security on this ship is really impressive, Katie said after a moment of silence. All those biometric scanners and code locks. You must feel very safe. We should feel safe, Blickstar said proudly. The Bloodfang has military-grade security systems, triple encrypted access codes, motion sensors, automated defense protocols. Nothing gets past our security. Wow, triple encrypted? That sounds really complicated. Do all the crew members have the same access level, or are there different clearances? Different clearances, of course. The captain has alpha-level access, senior crew has beta-level, and the rest have basic gamma-level clearance. That's so smart. And I bet the really important systems require multiple authorizations, right? Like 2 people have to agree before you can do something dangerous? Exactly. For things like life support, navigation and weapons systems, you need at least 2 beta-level authorizations. Katie nodded admiringly. You really know a lot about security. Have you ever thought about working in ship design? You'd probably be really good at it. Outside the cell he could hear raised voices as the crew argued about Katie's fate. Some wanted to ransom her, others preferred the slave markets, and a few suggested simply spacing her to avoid complications. None of them seemed to consider that maybe, just maybe, the complications had already begun. Excuse me. Katie called softly to Plock, who was currently on guard duty and trying very hard to look intimidating. Given that he was barely 5 feet tall and had the general appearance of an overgrown space hamster, he wasn't succeeding. What? Plock barked, attempting to channel Blickstar's menacing tone and achieving something closer to an irritated squeak. I'm really sorry to bother you, but I was wondering if I could get something to eat. I haven't had anything since yesterday, and I'm getting a little dizzy. Plock considered this. Prisoners needed to be kept alive, and dead prisoners couldn't be ransomed or sold. Fine, but no funny business. Of course not. Thank you so much. You're very professional. Professional? Plock puffed up slightly. None of his crewmates had ever called him professional before. Usually they called him things like walking disaster, or how did you even get hired? The walk to the galley took them through 3 different sections of the ship. Katie kept up a steady stream of nervous chatter, asking about the various rooms and corridors they passed. This is such a big ship, she marveled, stumbling slightly as they passed the armory. Plock steadied her with one hand while she caught her balance against the doorframe. Thank you. I'm so clumsy. Is this where you keep your tools? Weapons. Plock corrected, proudly. Plasma rifles, shock batons, stun grenades. Enough firepower to take down a small space station. Wow, that sounds dangerous. Do you ever worry about accidents? Like what if someone accidentally activated something? That's why we have safety locks, Plock explained, entirely missing the way Katie's fingers had briefly traced the door's access panel. Triple redundancy systems. Even I can't mess that up. In the galley, Katie was suitably impressed by the ship's food synthesizer, asking detailed questions about its operation, while Plock demonstrated the various settings. She was particularly interested in the maintenance access panel underneath, which Plock helpfully explained could be opened with any basic gamma-level code for routine cleaning. You know so much about the ship, Katie said admiringly as she ate her synthesized nutrition bar. Have you been a pirate for a long time? 3 years, Plock said, sitting across from her. Started when I was 16. My family needed the money. That's so young. Do you miss them? And just like that, Plock found himself telling this human girl about his 7 siblings on Rigel Minor, his sick mother, and how the money he sent home each month kept them all fed. Katie listened with such genuine interest and sympathy that he almost forgot she was supposed to be his prisoner. On the way back to the detention area, Katie asked for a bathroom break. The facilities were near the engineering section, and she couldn't help but comment on all the interesting sounds coming from behind the various doors. Those engines sound powerful, she said, pausing to listen to the hum of the hyperdrive motivators. Best in their class. Plock agreed. Though the cooling system's been acting up lately, makes this weird clicking noise every few hours. Oh no, that doesn't sound good. Is it dangerous? Nah, just annoying. Chief Engineer says it's just a loose coupling in Junction Box 7, nothing that'll blow up the ship or anything. Katie nodded sympathetically while mentally filing away the location of Junction Box 7 and the fact that their hyperdrive cooling system had a known vulnerability. Over the following hours, she established a routine. Food requests every 6 hours, bathroom breaks every 4, and occasional requests for fresh water. Each trip gave her access to different parts of the ship, and each conversation with Plock revealed more useful information. She learned that the crew worked in 8-hour shifts, with minimal overlap between rotations. She discovered that the navigation computer was accessible from 3 different terminals, including one in the galley that Plock used to check their course during his breaks. She found out that Captain Zekmo had a habit of reviewing mission plans in his quarters each evening, usually leaving his door unlocked, because who would be stupid enough to bother a pirate captain? Most importantly, she overheard a conversation that made her blood run cold, and her innocent act slip for just a moment. She was returning from another bathroom break when voices from the officers' mess caught her attention. Through the partially open door, she could see Captain Zekmo, Blickstar, and First Mate Grexic huddled around a holographic display. The Meridian colony won't be expecting an attack, Zekmo was saying. Their defense grid is minimal, mostly automated systems. We hit them fast, take what we want, and sell the survivors to the Orion Syndicate. How many civilians? Grexic asked. About 50,000, mostly families. Women and children bring better prices than men. And if they resist? Zekmo's laugh was cold. Then we make examples. Nothing motivates cooperation like watching your neighbors get spaced. Katie's hands clenched into fists at her sides. 50,000 people, families, children. Her expression hardened for just a moment, the mask of frightened innocence slipping to reveal something far more dangerous underneath. Plock, walking slightly behind her, was too busy checking his chrono to notice the change in her demeanor. Come on, he whispered urgently. If I'm late getting you back, Blickstar will use me for target practice. Of course, Katie said, her voice carefully modulated back to its previous timid tone. I wouldn't want to get you in trouble. But as they walked back toward her cell, her mind was working furiously. 50,000 innocent people versus one ship full of pirates. The mathematics were simple enough. She just needed a little more time to even the odds. Behind them, completely unnoticed, a small panel underneath the food synthesizer sparked briefly before going dark. In the armory, a safety lock mechanism developed a hairline crack, and in engineering, Junction Box 7's coupling became just a tiny bit looser. Small accidents, innocent malfunctions. The kind of thing that happened on old ships all the time. At least, that's what any reasonable person would assume. 48 hours after Katie's capture, Captain Zekmo decided it was time for a final interrogation before they reached Kepler Station. The human girl had been surprisingly cooperative, but something about the whole situation felt maybe it was the way his crew had started speaking fondly of their prisoner, or the increasing number of minor technical malfunctions plaguing his ship. He found Katie sitting calmly in her cell, no longer huddled in the corner like a frightened animal. She looked up as he approached, and for just a moment Zekmo could have sworn he saw something calculating in those wide brown eyes. Hello, Captain, she said politely. Plock mentioned you wanted to speak with me. That's right. Zekmo settled into the interrogator's chair, trying to project his usual intimidating presence. I have some questions before we arrive at our destination. Of course, I'll answer anything I can. The response was perfectly respectful, but something in her tone made Zekmo's scales itch. Let's start with the obvious. What were you really doing on that transport ship? Visiting my aunt on Proxima Colony, like I told you. Katie's voice remained steady, but there was less trembling now. Less fear. Though I suppose that doesn't matter much anymore. No, it doesn't. What matters is your value to us. The question is whether that value is higher as a hostage, a slave, or spare parts. Katie nodded thoughtfully, as if he'd presented her with an interesting academic problem rather than a death threat. I see. Well, before you decide, I have a question for you, Captain. Zekmo blinked. You have a question? For me? Yes. It's important. Katie leaned forward slightly, and the change in her posture was subtle but unmistakable. Less victim, more something else. Are you going to be targets or witnesses? What? The question made no sense. Targets or witnesses to what? To what happens next? Katie's voice was different now. Still soft, still polite, but with an edge of confidence that definitely hadn't been there before. See, I've been thinking about your situation, and I realize you have a choice to make. Zekmo felt a chill run down his spine. What situation? The Meridian colony attack you're planning. The words dropped into the silence like stones into still water. 50,000 civilians, women and children sold to the Orion Syndicate. Very ambitious. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. How do you know about that? I listen well. It's a useful skill. Katie tilted her head, studying him with eyes that were no longer wide and innocent. The question is, what are you going to do about it now that I know? You're a prisoner, Zekmo said, but his voice lacked its usual conviction. What could you possibly do about anything? Katie smiled, and it was nothing like the frightened, grateful expression she'd worn for the past 2 days. This smile was sharp, calculating, and utterly cold. Well, let's see. I could start by mentioning that your food synthesizer's primary processing unit has developed a rather interesting fault. Probably noticed the taste getting worse. Zekmo had noticed. Half the crew had been complaining about it. Or we could talk about your armory's security system. Fascinating how a hairline crack in the right component can cause such cascading failures. I bet your weapons inventory is showing some concerning discrepancies right about now. The comm unit crackled to life. Captain, to the armory, please. We have a situation. Katie's smile widened. And then there's my personal favorite, your hyperdrive cooling system. You know, the one with the loose coupling in junction box 7? Plock was so helpful in explaining that particular vulnerability. As if summoned by her words, an alarm began blaring. Emergency lighting flickered on as the ship's computer announced in its maddeningly calm voice, warning, hyperdrive temperature anomaly detected. Emergency shutdown initiated. Zekmo started to rise from his chair, rage and disbelief warring on his scaled features. Katie held up one finger. We're not finished with our conversation yet. Please sit down, Captain. We have so much to discuss. The casual authority in her voice was so complete that Zekmo found himself sitting back down before he realized what he was doing. Outside the cell he could hear his crew shouting, alarms wailing, and the general sounds of a ship experiencing multiple critical failures. Who are you? He whispered. That's the right question. Finally. Katie stood up, no longer the cowering child they'd captured. Her posture was straight, confident, professional. My name is Katie Chen, and I'm 17 years old, just like I told you. I was traveling to Proxima Colony to visit my aunt. That part was all true. But what I didn't mention is that I'm also Lieutenant Katie Chen, Human Colonial Defense Force, Special Operations Division. And I wasn't a passenger on that transport ship. Her smile turned predatory. I was the cargo. The words hit Zekmo like a physical blow. Cargo? Bait, more specifically. You see, human intelligence had identified this shipping route as a prime target for piracy. So they put me on that ship and waited to see who would take it. Congratulations, Captain. You caught exactly what you were supposed to catch. I'm a child who's been trained since age 12 in infiltration, sabotage, psychological warfare, and ship systems. Humans start their education young, Captain. We have to, given how dangerous the galaxy can be. Another alarm joined the cacophony outside. The lights flickered ominously. So let me ask you again, Katie said, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. Are you going to be targets or witnesses? Because right now your ship is crippled, your crew is panicking, and you're sitting in a cell talking to the person who engineered it all. She paused, letting that sink in. The question is, what happens when my backup arrives? Captain Zekmo stared at the human girl who was no longer a girl, his 4 hands trembling slightly as the full implications of her words sank in. Around them, his ship was falling apart in carefully orchestrated stages, and he was beginning to understand that none of it was accidental. "Back up," he managed. The detention cell's energy barrier flickered and died. Katie stepped out casually, as if walking through her own front door. "The food synthesizer wasn't just malfunctioning," she continued conversationally. "I modified its internal transmitter. Every meal Plock brought me gave me another opportunity to boost the signal strength. Your own ship has been broadcasting our location to human colonial defense for the past 47 hours. Zekmo lunged for his sidearm, but his hand closed on empty air. "When had looking for this?" Katie held up his plasma pistol, examining it with professional interest. "I borrowed it while you were processing my dramatic revelation. You really should pay more attention to your surroundings during interrogations. Basic security protocol. How did you? 17 years of training, remember? Humans don't just teach their children to read and write, Captain. We teach them to survive in a galaxy that seems determined to eat them alive." The ship lurched violently as another system failed. Through the detention area's viewport, Zekmo could see his crew running past in barely controlled panic. Sparks showered from overhead conduits, and the emergency lighting was now strobing in patterns that hurt to look at. "My engineering knowledge might be limited to sabotage applications," Katie said apologetically, "but I'm pretty sure you've got about 10 minutes before your life support starts having issues. 15 if you're lucky. You're going to kill us all." "Oh no, Captain. That's not my job. My job was intelligence gathering and target acquisition. The killing part, well, that depends entirely on your next few decisions." She moved to the viewport, gazing out at the stars with the casual confidence of someone who owned the space she occupied. "You see, humans have this interesting philosophical approach to justice. We believe in proportional response and the possibility of redemption, even for pirates." "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about choices, Captain. The same choice I offered you before, targets or witnesses." A new alarm began sounding, this one accompanied by the ship's computer announcing, "Hull breach detected in Cargo Bay 2. Emergency bulkheads engaging." "Your ship is dying," Katie said matter-of-factly. "Your hyperdrive is offline. Your weapons systems are compromised. Your communication array is broadcasting a distress signal you can't shut off. And your life support has maybe 10 minutes left." She turned back to face him, and Zekmo saw something in her eyes that was far older than 17 years. "But here's the thing about humans, Captain. We're remarkably good at fixing things when we want to be, just as good as we are at breaking them. What do you want?" "I want you to make a choice. Right now. Do you want to be targets of human justice, or witnesses to human mercy?" "I don't understand." Katie sighed. "Let me make it simpler. In about 2 minutes, a human colonial defense battle group is going to drop out of hyperspace right on top of you. They're going to see a disabled pirate vessel and a distress signal that's been broadcasting your location, your ship configuration, and the complete tactical analysis of your capabilities. The lights went out completely, leaving only the red glow of emergency systems. Now they can respond to that situation in one of 2 ways," Katie continued in the darkness. "Option 1, you're armed criminals who've been raiding human shipping lanes. They blow you apart and file a report about eliminating a pirate threat. Clean, simple, efficient." A distant rumble shook the ship as another system cascaded into failure. "Option 2, you're a crew of misguided individuals who made some poor life choices but are now ready to cooperate with human authorities. They dock with your ship, provide emergency repairs, take you into custody, and you get to live long enough to face trial. Messy, complicated, expensive." Through the viewport, space suddenly filled with light as massive shapes dropped out of hyperspace. Human ships, sleek and deadly, surrounding the crippled pirate vessel like sharks around a wounded fish. Katie's chronometer beeped softly. "Right on time," she said with satisfaction. "So, Captain Zekmo, what's it going to be? Are you going to surrender peacefully and accept whatever justice human courts decide you deserve, or are you going to go down fighting and let my colleagues write you off as just another dead pirate?" She stepped closer to him in the red-tinged darkness, and her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than all of Blickstar's shouted threats. "Are you going to be targets or witnesses, Captain? Because I promise you, the human fleet outside doesn't really care which you choose. They're professionals. They'll be efficient either way." "But I thought you said humans believe in mercy." Katie smiled one last time, and in the emergency lighting, it looked almost gentle. "We do, Captain. But mercy, like justice, is always a choice. The question is, do you deserve it?"